If it's a fraternity project for water, they can come up with additional funding, but we had testimony on the fuel truck that by Patrick Cates, there's no money budgeted for extra. They couldn't throw in any money for a truck. It wasn't budgeted. So either we had to do it all or none. So some projects went all funded and some we cut back as much as we could. And then some people says whatever money would help on a chaining project or something like that. So we try to divide the projects between management and science. And that's what we came up with. And the committee or anyone would be asked questions.
All right, I'd like to just concentrate first on the extensions, and then before we talk even about anything else, let's go with the extensions. Yes, on the extensions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the extensions, we had letters from everybody who needed to extend, and basically they explained the reasons why they had to. And in the case of Maxell Global Technology, the reason for this request for extension is that this project wasn't permitted to start until 3 months after the Heritage launch date of July 1st, 2010. As a result, so they lost 3 months on the project, and that was to go through the contracting process to be approved by the state, and there were questions that came up that had to be cleared up. So they got a late start on that. And technically speaking, they still have until June 30th to complete that project. They've obviously indicated they don't believe they can, that I think somebody indicated that it was probably going to be August or so, which accounts for the 30 days that they lost on the front end. But many of these that asked for extensions, that was the same reasoning, is that they weren't able to get started at the time that they anticipated, through no fault of their own or through no fault of the department either.
All right, I know I'd spoken with proponent of project 1116 Kelly Creek Water, and it was a similar case. You know, I mean, he's trying to do a water development, and by the time it gets all through the funding, it's fall, and it's a summer project. I think that's been the history of these projects through the commission. Approved in the middle of summer. Lots of them can only be done in the summer, so.
You ready, boss?
Discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner McBeth.
With regard to the extensions, 1119 and 1120 and 1126, were those the full amounts that were approved, or did they, because I'm looking at these round numbers, I'm wondering if they even started on these projects.
Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Howell.
A lot of these were not started simply because the fiscal year 10 projects were still in progress.
Yeah, I understand that.
And there was a big delay because of the legislature and all the attorney-type people.
So for all three of them, none of them were started?
I can't, they may have started by now.
No, I can answer that.
All right.
For the record, Patrick
Go ahead.
Cates. The FY11 projects have not started. They're still working on the FY10 projects, and they expect those to be billed out by the end of the fiscal year. And my understanding is that none of these have been started yet and won't be until next fiscal year. And our assumption is it's probably going to take most of that fiscal year to do those projects.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman,
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Capro.
the request for extension, because those projects are going through the Wildlife Services, and the extension was requested by Wildlife Services.
Okay.
So they're the ones that are running the projects.
You ready?
Do you have anything further, Mr. Vice Chairman, or we're ready for a motion on this? I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Howell.
I would move that we accept the committee's recommendations for the Heritage project extension.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Capurro, I believe, to approve the fiscal year 2011 Heritage Project extension list as it came out of the committee. And just for the record, that is approving the extensions on 1101, 1114, 1116, 1117, 1119, 1120, 1126. Everybody understand the motion on the floor? All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, now,
Mr.
let's
Chair,
hit the projects. Go ahead.
did we
Commissioner?
ever get anything out of the Thane project that, nothing?
As far as what I know, at this point, we would have to wait until the completion report. I spoke to him real briefly for like a minute because he was in the field, and he just mentioned he was going to put in for an extension, and that's really all that I know. So I'd have to wait till, if he doesn't spend a dime, well, then he won't have to turn in, well, he still will have to turn in a completion report, or not a completion, but notify me that, the project's done, and I'll make sure that by June, it's either closed out, so I know there's no bills coming. And if he has spent a dollar, well, then a completion report would be needed.
But thus far, he hasn't spent any money.
Not that I'm aware.
There's one question on that, and I don't think there's a way around it, but maybe you know of one, is that there's clearly some money still sitting there, and is there a way to transfer that at this juncture to another project? That we could say, okay, he's done, he's not expending this money, but that money ends this fiscal year. I know we have authority under that to go ahead and, if there's money left over somewhere, somebody drops a project, we can go ahead and approve one in the interim.
Only within that fiscal year.
Within that fiscal.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
so there's just no way.
It's really, the money from project 0908 will go back into the Heritage Trust account, and we can't touch it.
But
The
just-
what-
Okay.
But the only time you can reallocate money if there is excess is, like they've mentioned, is in the 11 fiscal year or the 12 fiscal year.
Yeah, and there's no way on this we could ever extend it at all, just due to the fact that we don't have any meetings between now and,
Correct.
even if we wanted to.
Not only that, but you're dealing with this project started in '09. And so therefore, you're dealing with '09 money.
How much
The others
was it?
were all extensions, so there is no money to transfer.
No,
86,000.
wasn't it 30 way back? 86 is the Jackson.
It
was-
was $22,560.
Was that
We're just gonna lose that.
I'm sorry?
We're just gonna lose that.
Well, we don't lose it. It goes back into the Heritage Trust account.
We'll
but we
gain the
can't-
interest.
We can
But
get
if he
interest.
gets a
correct.
finished report by July 1, he'll still get paid and we'll get a report.
Right, if he spends any money as of June 30th, if he can get something going, then yes, we will receive a report.
All right. Anyways, let's go down the project list we all got. A nice report here. Yeah, go ahead.
If you're ready for a motion, I'll make a motion being the committee chairman, after doing a lot of, After doing a lot of extensive review, I'll make a motion that we approve the FY 2012 Heritage Project list as presented by the committee.
Second. Okay, it's been
Now we
properly
discuss
moved
it.
and seconded to approve this list as presented by the committee. I would hazard a guess that there's some discussion. Commissioner Macbeth.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the committee. While I probably would have chose some of these other projects over some of the ones that were actually on the list here, overall, I was pleased with the selections, and I do have 3 comments, and some of them are really carryover from the last year's heritage projects, and so it's just really 3. I continue to have heartburn about the Jersey Valley Cattle Company project on Mountain Lions. Looking at the completion, looking at the extension,
Give me a number on that.
that is 1225. And when you look at his request for extension, he's killed 7 mountain lions, and he's indicating that he's going to get the rest of the lions, and I think it was 15 total, wasn't it?
No.
How many?
10.
Mr. Chairman, can I interject here?
But let's let him finish. Let's let him finish.
He's got the floor.
He's got
Well, there's some numbers that are wrong, and I'd
Okay.
just like to.
Make sure you make a note of them, and when he's done,
So anyway, it looks like he's going to be going in the fall, and subject to anything that Commissioner Howell is going to enlighten me as to. But even if he wasn't going into the fall, I still have a problem with having a private person, not Wildlife Services, doing that project. I want to end up with 1227, but jump to 1229. We just heard, this is the Alliance for Wildlife project, 1229 for $40,000. We just heard on the extension that he hasn't started his fiscal 2011 project, and we also heard that it will take all of 2012 to complete the 2011 project. So I have a problem with approving 1229, because in effect what we're doing is we're approving a 2013 project in effect. If we go ahead and prove that, because we already know that these dollars are not going to be spent in the next fiscal year. We're actually going to spend them in 2013, and we should really wait until then to do anything with that.
Protect the sage grouse.
okay.
1227. As you are all aware, I've had major concerns about this project. I don't know if it's going to have any utility for the department. But I really have a problem with moving forward on this until we actually get what we were promised in the project for 2011. We are, we still have no idea what we're going to get, in my mind, and I would really like to get it first and have it reviewed. I think there was some discussion that it was going to be peer reviewed, and so until we get something from Mr. Maxon, or Mr. and Mrs. Maxim on this project, I just really have a problem spending an additional $47,000 to do what? Apparently now to analyze the data. Is that what this project is about for 2012? So I would rather us not do anything on this project and wait until we get the product, get it peer reviewed, get some comments from the experts that are expert in this field, because I don't think this commission has the capability of really understanding what's going on, and with all this science and analysis that he's doing, and let's
Gotta be kidding.
let's wait until we have the product in our hand. We can have both the department and outside interests review it and comment on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Okay, we have Commissioner Howell, then Commissioner Vogler.
I'm just going to respond to the remarks from Commissioner Macbeth. On 1225, he had originally asked for 21.6, which would have meant 12 lions. And because he was started late, because of the legislature and getting everything approved, there was $3,000 left over, I believe was what the extension was. And so what we did is instead of giving him the full 21.6, we considered the money that was left over and subtracted it. And that's what, so we came up with 18,000, which would bring him back to 10 lions, a total. this 1227, the way I read it and the way we discussed it was this is to pay for a peer review. That's what this is for, to pay for the peer review. And 1229, the reason why there's an extension on the why it didn't get done also in 2011 is because we had so much trouble getting it approved, going through the legislature, going, dancing to everybody's tune that you have to go through to get things done. Now, the 2010 money is going to be spent. You just heard that. It's going to be over with by, and these are, these things like this are time sensitive because of the weather and whatnot. And I've talked to Wildlife Services quite a bit about these projects. And I don't think for a minute that they may not spend all of this money, the 2011 money and this extra 40,000 we approved in the committee. I don't think for a minute they're not going to be able to do that. It's a possibility, but I think they'll use it. That's why we approved it.
We had Commissioner Vogler had previously called on, and then Mr. Vice Chairman. And then we'll move down the row.
You're up.
Commissioner Vogler.
Lacking any sophistication on being able to decipher the ciphering, I have to tell the committee they did make two very wise choices. Nothing surprises me anymore, but two studies that were turned down, denied, both deal with the measure and the survival and cause of specific morality in Ruby Mountain mule deer, an investigation of cause-specific morality in Nevada mule deer. Thank you that you denied those, because I don't think that's any of our business. Now, 1201. I have a question about that. Were there any specific projects? It says transplant. Is this our last and final? It just, that seems like a blank check. And transplant is obviously going to be affecting multiple use, or could possibly. There has to be some coordination with the livestock industry. Is that a blank check, or will we have other chances to say, to opine whether that is a good idea or not? Or is that, what is the transplant? Could I have Mr. Cox come forward and explain what those are and where they're going to go in, or is that out of order?
Oh, well, what we can do is we can ask staff if they have someone that would like that has an explanation.
Specific project.
And you're after him, so you can clarify.
Larry Gilbertson, Department of Wildlife. We bring forward the biennial big game trapping and transplanting plan to the commission for their approval, and so that'll be coming up.
And again, along those lines, if you have this 90,000, you must have some idea of what you're going to use it for. And then what happens if somehow that this commission, for some reason, said, well, we don't think that's a good use of that money? Will it be used for something else? Will it go back to the heritage? That's my...
If we don't use all the money that's allotted, yeah, then it just goes back into the Heritage Fund.
But there is going to be some more oversight in, especially...
Definitely, yeah.
Okay,
We bring it forward.
But before,
Well, let's see if we can, we'll make sure the Commissioner Vogel is done, and then we had Vice Chairman, and then I've got to cover everybody on this side. That was it, okay. Mr. Vice Chairman, and then we're cruising down this side.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I drilled staff pretty hard on that. I just had some problems with this because there's no tracking of this money to a specific project. They just say we're going to have two of this, two of this, two of this, and I had big concerns over that because it is sort of like a blank check. Here, you do this, and we do, and that is one of the project for Commissioner from Las Vegas here. That one isn't even finished. We don't have the results of the transplant. They got an extension, and we don't have a report on what they did last year even. So that was one we approved the extension, and we approved more money this year without getting a report. Just like on a lot of these other ones, we didn't get a report, we approved the extension on. And so I did that, promised that, and I grilled staff pretty hard on that. On these other projects, and I think Commissioner Howell responded on 1225 and also on 1227. I have a letter I just got this morning. I took it off my computer. I want to read in the record on 1227. It's a support letter. And on 1229, Nevada Alliance for Wildlife, the committee went ahead and awarded them another $40,000 because that is a definite sage grouse project. And we felt that we got to do everything we can, throw more money in to protect the sage grouse because we really got a problem. And Wildlife Services is going to throw additional people and additional support to spend last year's money and this year's money. We're going to throw more support in to try to protect the sage grouse, and we felt we need to do everything we can. And that's why we put this project in, even though they hadn't spent it, but we got some pretty good assurance. Wildlife Service, they'll put additional resource in there, more poison eggs, etc., to protect our sage grouse. So whatever we felt, this committee felt we could do to help the sage grouse, we're going to do it. And if they only spend half of it, that's fine. If they don't spend any of it, but the money's there, so we're going to push them hard to increase their sage grouse project. And that's the reason why we approved that. And the letter I'll read in the record I just got this morning, this is on Project 1227. And it says, Dear Chairman Rain and Dr. Lent, Maxwell scientists will not be able to attend the Heritage Trust approval project portion of the full commission meeting on Friday, May 13th. We have commitments that have been scheduled for months and are not breakable, as we are committed to another itinerary. Please do not view this as a lack of interest on Maxwell's behalf. We have donated considerable time and resources to planning Project 1227, which is a critical endeavor under consideration by the Heritage Trust Fund. Since we cannot attend the meeting to support our project, we are including the following statement of support. Proposed Project 1227 is probably the most important foundational support to elucidate key drivers that may be affecting our Great Basin mule deer. Yes. Scientific experts, PhDs with range management, quantitative biology, wildlife management, and interactive ecology will focus on the data, assumptions, and deer population models that NDOW and system consultants of Fallon have generated. In addition, these scientific experts will review the whole picture of mule deer in Nevada by analyzing a comprehensive database from Maxwell Project 1114. This database will include NDOW and system consultant data, along with data from BLM, DRI, USGS, U.S. Forest Service, and GIS experts. In the end, the Science Review Expert Panel will hold a conference to present its findings, recommendations, and science to the Commission, NDOW, and other interested stakeholders. These findings will be published and distributed to interested parties. Those agencies and individuals which oppose Project 1227 clearly do not understand the need for an independent peer review of the science within NDOW. To the outsider, opposition is perplexing, as this peer review should be welcomed both by NDOW and its NGO supporters, as it will affirm and recommend good science practice, in quotes, to better manage mule deer in Nevada. Our ongoing project, Heritage Project 1114, was delayed several months because of actions outside of Maxwell's control, which required a contract extension. However, we have made significant progress and are discovering trends that will have a significant impact on decisions by NDOW staff and wildlife commissioners. Thank you for your consideration. Patrick Maxim, PhD, Ellen Maxim, PhD, Maxwell Global Technologies. And I'll enter that into the record. But I'm going to request, and one of my deal is to request an audit of the model, deer modeling that we have in here by a panel, and I don't know if that's going to be included in here. It's sort of not clear, but I think we should audit our deer modeling. There are modeling experts in the country, and I've already talked to some of them, and these guys are experts, because our model is just a linear progressive model. It's not really a sophisticated model, and I think it'd be nice to be able to review it like we reviewed the tag draw system, and it gets reviewed periodically, and I think that'd be good to do that. And anyway, that's a letter I'll read into the record.
I'll put it here in the folder.
We'll give it in the folder, and that's one of the reasons, if you look at his proposal, why we approve that project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Yeah, I just opened up my thing. There was an email, 10 o'clock last night. We had comments. Okay, Commissioner Wallace, and then we'll see if Commissioner Cavan, Commissioner Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Macbeth covered a few of the items that I had some questions on, and one of my biggest issues is results, results, results. I hear we need results, we need results. I don't want to see another scientific study, yet we fund a scientific study, yet we don't have the results from the first half of it yet. And I have a problem continuing, I don't have a problem continuing projects, but I have a problem adding on to projects that aren't completed yet. So there are a lot of good projects here, and I do support, but I can't support the motion that I believe sitting on the table right now due to 1225 and 1227. We don't have any results from the previous project, and now we're extending it and giving more money on top of it. And those are that's just a couple of them, but that's where I'm at with that. If you haven't finished the previous project, I don't want to see more money until we get some results. And that's what I keep hearing is we need results, results, results. Yet we just are handing out over $100,000 here that we don't have results from the first go around yet.
Stop 1201.
All right, we have
Thank you.
Commissioner Cavan, followed by Commissioner Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that I think the committee did a lot of work. I've served on that committee, so I know the committee did a lot of work. And although I don't agree with every project on this, I think the committee basically did a pretty good job of balancing research and on-the-ground projects, habitat projects, and so forth. So I'm not going to really nitpick the committee's recommendations. I see some other projects on here that I like better than some of the ones that are on here, but those would be personal references. I have some issues with some of the same projects that Commissioner Macbeth talked about, but I don't think they're particularly fatal, so thank you.
Commissioner Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a tough job to try to allocate $400,000 with $2.1 million worth of requests in that, and I applaud the committee for the effort put forth. Using the same line that both Mr. Macbeth and Mr. Wallace said, you could also apply that to 1201 and to the extension we just gave to 1101. We don't have a report on, and that's why the question was asked, and Mr. Gilbertson indicated we'd have a report on that when? August. So we don't have a report on that one either, yet we're going to allocate $90,000. Also, I don't know which projects, maybe, because I didn't attend that, but are they all bighorn sheep transplants? Are there some antelope transplants? Are there some elk transplants? You know, don't get me wrong. I think the transplant program has done an excellent job, but I think there's a bit of transparency issue here too, and I think it's very unfair to pick out something else because it's a private project instead of one that's run by the department, and complain about the fact you haven't got a report yet when they're not due to give the report, and we're held up on the report until June 30th. So I will be supporting these projects.
All right, do we have any further discussion? More further discussion.
Yeah, I would just like to respond to just one item of Commissioner Howell. He made the statement that the $47,000 for project 1227 was to pay for peer review. It's my understanding that there is no cost for peer review. Peer review is a process in the scientific community for reviewing, other scientists' project to make sure that somebody's, looking at it. And I know there's some people back here that can speak to this. But if we're paying for other scientists to somehow, do this, it seems like there's a built-in conflict, and so now we've really got an expansion of this project, and in effect, the whole thing is going to have to be peer reviewed after we pay for the peer review, it seems. I just cannot support this additional $47,000 without seeing the initial project. I just can't. It just seems like we're throwing money away on this one.
All right, I'm going to make some comments because I've had so quiet here today. It's just absolutely shocking to some member of the audience. Anyways, basically, I know, this committee is a really tough one to sit on, and I'm sitting here looking at these projects, and I sat through yesterday's portion of this, and, if I was coming up with my list, 10 out of 16 projects comprising about half the money would be different. I'm not, so therefore, I ain't going to micromanage. It's a tough deal. So, you got what we got. Now, you got something, and hopefully final comments.
Yes, this is my final comment. You guys are very lucky. If it was up to me, Waffle, we wouldn't have done it. What? I don't understand that. I haven't been here long enough, so I voted for it. But I wouldn't have voted for it. This state's broke. Everybody in this room's had to take a haircut.
Motion to reconsider, we send Hank.
No.
Oh, sorry,
No.
wrong agenda item.
Gasoline's $4 a gallon. Shouldn't we look a little bit fiscally responsible just because we got the hunter supporting it? Well, it's the same way. We're going to buy a $47,000 water truck. You can get a deuce and a half from the Army surplus over there for $7,000, and you can climb up the face of the walls in here with it. It's got four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, and the air conditioner, you roll the window down. You want heater, you roll the window up. I mean, $47,000. I wished I could buy a trainload of $47,000 water trucks. I haul water every day. I know what diesel. But let's move on. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Everybody understand the motion? Everybody understand the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Motion passes. Let me see, we had 2 opposed. With 6-2, we had Commissioner Macbeth and Commissioner Wallace opposed. All right, another motion? Okay, good. Let's have the motion for the break. Give us 10.